The Department of Justice releasing its remaining documents from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the records will be posted throughout the day, including more than 2,000 videos, more than 180,000 images, some of the material so explicit you have to verify being an adult before you can actually access it.
Many of Epstein's survivors have been publicly pushing for years to have these documents come out, but it took a law passed with near unanimous support in Congress to finally bring these documents to light.
Victims of Mr. Epstein have gone through unspeakable pain, and there's nobody that should say anything differently. And I, to the extent that there's frustration, I understand where that comes from, just from what we know about Mr. Epstein. I hope that the work that the men and women within this department have done over the past 2 months.
Welcome back, everyone. Your host, Adam, is here. And here's what nobody's talking about right now. While everyone's distracted by whatever Trump is tweeting or whatever scandal just dropped, something way bigger is happening behind closed doors. And I mean literally behind closed doors. Because at this exact moment, there are judges and top government officials sitting in secure rooms reading files that you and I will never get to see.
A new NPR investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor and that some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime.
Unredacted files. The real stuff. No black bars, no censored names, no redacted paragraphs. Just raw documents that mention Trump and a whole bunch of other powerful people. And some of these officials are starting to talk about what they've seen. And it's not good. Let's start with what just happened in New York. A federal judge forced the Justice Department to fix what he called serious redaction errors in the Epstein files.
CNN's Evan Perez is here with us now. And Evan, there's been a lot of speculation about President Trump being named in these files. And we're learning now the FBI actually compiled a list of allegations related to the president back in August. What are you learning?
Right. So this was in 2025 that the FBI compiled a list of all of these sexual assault allegations that involved the president of the United States, that some of them stretch back years, decades, that were associated with this case. And we don't know what of anything is actually credible here. As a matter of fact, we believe that a lot of these could not be verified. Some of them were second and third hand accounts that people were relating things.
Yeah, those Epstein files. The ones that are supposed to tell us who was connected to one of the most notorious criminals in modern history. Except the government screwed up the redactions so badly that victim names and images were accidentally exposed to the public. Can you believe this? The DOJ had one job: protect victims and release the truth. And they managed to fail at both. Judge Richard Berman was not happy. He called out the government, made them fix it, and then canceled a hearing because finally, after the court got involved, they actually did their job. The BBC reported that thousands of Epstein documents were briefly taken down after victims complained the redactions failed to protect them. So we're not talking about a small oops. We're talking about a systemic failure in how DOJ is handling one of the most high-profile document releases in recent history. But here's where it gets wild. On February 9th, two members of Congress, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, went on CNN and said something that should make everyone pay attention. They said that after reviewing the full unredacted Epstein files in a secure setting, they believe at least a half-dozen powerful men are being shielded by over-redactions. Let that sink in. At least 6 powerful people whose names and connections the public is not seeing. These lawmakers saw the real files, the ones without the black bars, and they're telling us that what we're getting is not the full story. Not even close. For context, Massie is a Republican from Kentucky. Khanna is a Democrat from California. They don't agree on much, but they both reviewed the same files and both came out saying the same thing. Powerful men are being protected and the public is being kept in the dark. That's not partisan. That's bipartisan agreement that the government is hiding something. Now, let's talk about Trump because his name is all over this. the Justice Department just released around 3.5 million pages from the Epstein files. 3.5 million. That's not a typo. And buried in their press release, DOJ explicitly warns that some of these documents contain, quote, untrue and sensationalist claims about President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. So let me get this straight. The government is sitting on millions of pages of documents, some of which accuse Trump of things, and they're saying some of it's fake, but they won't tell us which parts are fake and which parts are real. They just dump it all out there with a little disclaimer and call it transparency. This is the game they're playing. Judges get to see everything. Investigators get to see everything. Members of Congress in secure rooms get to see everything. But you and me, we get redacted versions with half the names blacked out and a vague warning that some of it might be lies. And we're just supposed to trust that the people with access to the real files are making the right calls about what we're allowed to know. Here's the thing, though. Even if the public never sees the unredacted files, judges do. And in the legal system, that matters. Because when a judge has access to unredacted evidence, that evidence can still be used to build criminal cases, civil cases, or investigations, even if the public never knows about it. So when people ask, is Trump in danger from these files? The answer is maybe. We don't know what judges are seeing behind those closed doors. We don't know what investigators are finding in those 3.5 million pages. But we do know that some very powerful people are extremely nervous right now, and the fact that a federal judge just forced the Justice Department to fix their screw-ups, and the fact that members of Congress are publicly hinting that powerful men are being protected, tells you this story is not going away. Let's break down what unredacted files actually mean in the real world. Most people hear that term and think, oh, it's just some government paperwork with fewer black boxes. No. Unredacted files are the difference between reading a story with half the sentences missing and reading the whole thing. It's the difference between knowing that something happened and knowing exactly who did it, when they did it, how they did it, and who else was involved. And in a legal context, that difference can be the difference between walking free and going to prison. When the government releases documents to the public, they redact them. They black out names, dates, locations. Anything they say needs to be protected for privacy, national security, or ongoing investigations. Sometimes those redactions are legit. Protecting a victim's identity makes sense. Protecting classified intelligence sources? Fair. But sometimes, and this is where it gets shady, redactions are used to protect powerful people from embarrassment or legal exposure. And the public has no way to know which type they're looking at because we can't see what's under the black bars. But judges can. Investigators can. Members of Congress with the right clearance can. And that's what's happening right now. The public gets a redacted version, but the people who matter in the legal system are seeing everything, and some of them are starting to talk about the gap between what they see and what we see. That gap is huge. Massie and Khanna didn't name names. They can't. The files are classified. But they made it clear that what the public is getting is not the full story, and the fact that a Republican and a Democrat are standing together on this tells you it's not a partisan thing. It's a, the government is hiding stuff and we need to know what it is thing. Now let's talk about the redaction screw-up in New York. Judge Berman publicly said the U.S. government agreed to fix serious redaction errors. What does that mean? It means the DOJ screwed up so badly that unredacted victim names and images were accidentally exposed. The agency responsible for protecting crime victims and managing sensitive legal documents made mistakes so obvious and so harmful that a federal judge had to step in and force them to fix it. And this wasn't a quiet behind-the-scenes fix. Berman made a public statement. He canceled a planned hearing because the government finally got it together once the court got involved. He said he was pleased but not surprised that the issues were resolved. Translation: I had to embarrass you into doing your job. If they're screwing up redactions meant to protect victims, what else are they screwing up? What names are being over-redacted to protect people who don't deserve protection? That's the question Massie and Khanna are asking. And they're not the only ones. The Epstein files aren't just about one guy. They're about a network of wealthy, connected, influential people who were part of Epstein's world. Some were victims, some were witnesses, and some were maybe complicit. But the key thing to understand is that this network includes people with enough power to make the Justice Department very, very careful about what it releases. And that's what we're seeing right now. The public is getting a version of the story that's been scrubbed, redacted, and sanitized. Meanwhile, the people who actually have power, the judges, the prosecutors, the members of Congress, they're getting the real story. And some of them are starting to hint that the real story is a lot uglier than what we're being told. Massie and Khanna didn't have to go on CNN and say that at least a half-dozen powerful men are being protected. They could have reviewed the files and kept their mouths shut, but they didn't. They went public. That tells you something. It tells you that what they saw was bad enough that they felt an obligation to speak up even if they can't give us the details. It tells you that the redaction process isn't just protecting victims, it's protecting perpetrators. And it tells you there are people inside the government tired of covering for powerful men who should be held accountable. The whole redaction system is designed to control information. Sometimes that's necessary. But when you have a situation where the government admits it screwed up so badly that victim names were exposed, and where members of Congress publicly say over-redactions are shielding powerful people, that's not a system that's working. That's a system that's broken. And the fact that it took a federal judge forcing the Justice Department to fix its mistakes tells you DOJ wasn't going to fix it on its own. They were fine with releasing botched documents until a judge made them accountable. Every time the government hides something, every time they over-redact, every time they release 3.5 million pages with a vague disclaimer about untrue and sensationalist claims, they're feeding the exact conspiracy theories they claim to be fighting. Because when people can't see the full truth, they fill in the blanks with speculation. In a case about Jeffrey Epstein and powerful men and accusations against a sitting president, the speculation runs wild. The government could shut a lot of that down by just being transparent, but they won't. Because transparency would mean accountability, and accountability would mean powerful people facing consequences. That's not how the system works. So where does this leave Trump? Honestly, we don't know yet. What we do know is that judges have seen unredacted files that mention him. We know DOJ admits those files contain accusations against him, even if they say some are untrue. We know members of Congress are hinting that powerful men are being shielded, and we know the legal system is quietly reviewing material the public will never fully see. That's a very precarious position, because even if Trump never gets charged with anything related to the Epstein files, even if every accusation turns out false, the fact that this material exists and that judges are reviewing it means his legal exposure is real. There's a possibility, however small, that something in those files could be used against him down the line. That's the prison alert angle. Not that Trump's going to prison tomorrow, not that he's been charged with anything new, but that the machinery of justice is turning. Judges are seeing things, investigators are reviewing things, and the gap between what they know and what we know is where the danger lives. Because in high-profile cases, it's often the stuff that happens behind closed doors, the unredacted files, the sealed hearings, the private meetings that ends up mattering most. Public pressure is the only thing moving the needle here. Judge Berman didn't force DOJ to fix its redactions because he woke up one day and felt like it. He did it because victims complained, because the mistakes were so obvious they couldn't be ignored, because public outrage forced the court to act. Massie and Khanna didn't go on CNN to score political points. They went on because they know the public is demanding answers. They know people are angry, and they know if they don't speak up, nothing's going to change. This is how change happens, not through the system working the way it's supposed to, but through public pressure forcing the system to do its job. Right now, that pressure is building. Every new story about redaction failures, every new hint from lawmakers about what's being hidden, every new piece of evidence that powerful people are being protected, it all adds to the pressure. Eventually, that pressure has to go somewhere. The Epstein files are not going away. The pressure from victims, from lawmakers, from the public is not going away. And as long as there's a gap between what judges see and what we see, there will be questions about who's being protected and why. Trump's name is in those files. His accusers' claims are in those files. Whether those claims are true or false, The fact that they exist and that they're being reviewed by people with power to act on them means this story is far from over. So keep your eye on this. The next time you hear about redaction failures, or lawmakers demanding transparency, or judges forcing the government to release more information, remember that behind all of that, there are real files with real names and real accusations. Some of those names belong to the most powerful people in the world. And some of those accusations, if they turn out to be true, could change everything. That's the story. That's why it matters. And that's why you should be paying attention.